Hey guys, it's Sagar, and in the fourth video of this year, I'm going to compare the triple cameras on this newly launched Xiaomi 11i Hypercharge 5G with the ones on the Mi 11X. There is a lot which separates these two phones, but both of them get a triple camera setup on their back, and their prices are not too far away from each other. Also, I got a lot of requests to compare the cameras on these two phones. Those of you familiar with the Mi 11X might know that it is an excellent overall phone, but the cameras are not as good as the rest of the phone. If you guys saw my dedicated camera review of the Xiaomi 11i Hypercharge 5G, I said the same thing about it. The overall phone is really good, but the cameras are its weakest link. So this is going to be a very interesting camera comparison. We have a lot of image and video samples to go through, so let's just dive into the video by checking out the cameras that we are working with. If you guys want to skip this section, you can do that from the chapters on the timeline of this video. The Mi 11X gets a 48 megapixel primary camera with f1.8 aperture and a 26mm lens. Next, it gets an 8 megapixel camera with f2.2 aperture and an ultra wide angle lens. And finally, there is a 5 megapixel camera with a telemacro lens. Xiaomi 11i Hypercharge comes with a 108 megapixel primary camera, f1.9 aperture and 26mm lens. Next is the 8 megapixel camera with f2.2 aperture and an ultra wide angle lens. And finally, there is a 2 megapixel macro camera with f2.4 aperture. Both can shoot videos at a maximum resolution of 4K 30fps. On the Mi 11X, you get electronically stabilized 4K and 1080p 30fps videos, whereas on the Xiaomi 11i, only 1080p 30fps videos get electronic stabilization. And the front, Mi 11X gets a 20 megapixel camera with f2.5 aperture, and Xiaomi 11i Hypercharge gets a 16 megapixel sensor, again with f2.5 aperture. Now the Xiaomi 11i comes with a half megapixel primary camera, but the Mi 11X comes with a Snapdragon processor which is said to have a better ISP than its MediaTek counterpart. Before we move on to the image and video samples, if you guys are new to this channel, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon next to it. That way, you won't miss out on any of the amazing videos coming up on this channel. Let us start with the daytime shots. These images in bright daylight look just as good from both the phones. These are 12 megapixel pixel-to-min images from both of them. There seem to be enough details in these shots from so far, but as we start zooming in, we observe something interesting. Xiaomi 11i tries to add a lot of artificial sharpening, which often makes its images look too processed. Mi 11X's images on the other hand seem to be looking much more natural. This happens only when there is not enough light around. In other cases, images from both the phones look equally good. In some of the shots, we see more noise in Xiaomi 11i's images when we zoom in, while Mi 11X is doing a good job of keeping the noise down. You can observe these things when we zoom way in. But without zooming in, I feel Xiaomi 11i's images are looking a bit more pleasing. There is also a slight normal warmth to its images, whereas the Mi 11X is adding slight green tint in quite a few of its images, especially when you are clicking images outdoors. This green tint goes away once we are indoors. Coming to the colors, as you might probably tell, Xiaomi 11i is capturing a bit muted colors, while the colors in the Mi 11X's images are looking more lively here. If you guys saw my Mi 11X's camera review, in the beginning it was capturing the same colors as the Xiaomi 11i. With a subsequent update, Xiaomi fixed the colors on it, and I am hoping they would do the same for the Xiaomi 11i as well. That being said, everyone has their personal color preference, so go with the one whose colors look better to you. The Xiaomi 11i tends to overexpose some of the images, so unless you tap on the brightest part of the image or adjust the exposure slider manually, you will see some overexposed parts in the image, like tip of the yellow tulips in this shot. Coming to the HDR shots, Xiaomi 11i is a bit more aggressive with this. It tries to bring up more details from the shadows while preserving the highlights, and more often than not, it succeeds in doing so. You see its HDR shot looking better than the ones from the Mi 11X. While the Xiaomi 11i does a good job of bringing up the shadows and preserving the brighter areas in the shot, for some reason, the Mi 11X can only do one of these at a time. It can either deal with the shadows or the highlights in one shot, but not both, which is annoying. That being said, every now and then, the Mi 11X delivers better HDR results than the Xiaomi 11i, like you see here. The Xiaomi 11i is also adding a lot of sharpness in these HDR shots, which I feel makes the images look too processed. Depending on your preference, you may or may not like that. I just keep the HDR mode on both these phones turned off and turn it on manually when I feel the situation really demands it. Unless you have a very bright background behind your subject, both are equally good at setting the focus when it comes to taking close-up shots. But if the background is bright, the Xiaomi 11i has a really tough time setting the focus, like with this shot. But when I brought the exposure down manually, its close-up shot combined with the HDR mode has done a much better job than the Mi 11X. In other normal situations, you can see the main subject being in focus on both of them, and the background gets a very nice natural bokeh. 11i has a bigger sensor, so the background in its close-up shots gets a bit more blurred out. You can always add in the saturation and contrast later on while editing, so just don't worry too much about that. Just look at the images that you think looks better or sharper and go with it. Personally, I prefer the close-up shots from the Xiaomi 11i, but the story is completely different when it comes to taking macro shots. The 2 megapixel macro camera on the Xiaomi 11i is just useless. It can't even get close enough to the subject, and the quality of the images is just bad. The macro camera on the Mi 11X on the other hand is far better, and it will let you get much more closer to the subject. Just look at these macro shots. Ones from the Mi 11X are looking so good. If you are into macro photography, then your only choice between these two is the Mi 11X. Just remember, there should be ample light while taking macro shots with any phone, or else they would look very grainy. Like the macro cameras, both of them have a dedicated ultra-wide lens as well, and here is how much more of the scene those lenses lets us get in the shot compared to the primary camera. Just like in this shot, the wide lens comes in very handy when you want to capture wider scene and you don't have any space to move back. Both of them have an 8 megapixel sensor behind this lens, so these images are not as sharp or detailed as the ones from the primary camera. But if we zoom in, we find the wide shots on the Xiaomi 11i to be slightly sharper. This might be because it applies artificial sharpening, but for these shots it is working in its favor. I had the HDR mode off on both these phones, but even then, we see Xiaomi 11i capturing a lot of details in the shadows, whereas image from the Mi 11X is filled with contrast and there is barely any information in the dark areas of its image. Again, we see the same thing in this image. Wide shot from the Xiaomi 11i is looking so much more pleasing. In the launch event, Xiaomi said that they worked on matching the color temperature and white balance between the lenses on the 11i. But there is a big difference in the colors from its normal and wide lens, just like the Mi 11X. That being said, out of the two, I would still pick the Xiaomi 11i Hypercharge for taking my wide shots. As I said at the beginning, all the shots on the main cameras of both these phones were 12 megapixel pixel binned ones. If you want to capture high resolution images, you will have to switch to the 48 megapixel mode on the Mi 11X and 108 megapixel mode on the Xiaomi 11i. Here are how these shots look from both the phones compared side by side. You might not see any big difference between the images from so far, but as I zoom way in, you will see that the 108 megapixel shots are slightly sharper and show more details. We see the same thing in this next set of images as well. 108 megapixel ones from the Xiaomi 11i have more details, while ones from the Mi 11X have a lot of noise in them. Well, this was to be expected, but if you really take a closer look, the difference is not all that much. When you just look at the numbers on paper, it sounds like 108 megapixel images would have so much more details compared to the 48 megapixel ones. But in real life, the difference isn't all that much. On top of that, in indoors or in diffuse lighting conditions, 108 megapixel shots on the Xiaomi 11i have a watercolor-like effect, whereas 48 megapixel ones from the Mi 11X are showing much more details. So don't just go on the numbers. High megapixel count doesn't always mean better images. With that, let's check out the portrait shots. For the last few years, Xiaomi has been doing really well with portrait shots. They kept on refining edge detection over years, and now it's almost perfect. Unlike most Xiaomi phones in the past, both of them rely on software for detecting the edges, and they are again pretty good at that. The edge detection is very accurate from both, but Mi 11X's portrait shots have unusually high amount of contrast in them. Colors are a little pale in Xiaomi 11i's portraits, but they are still looking much better than the portraits on the Mi 11X. It seems like the Mi 11X is completely desaturating these portraits, which is surprising because the lighting at this particular place was very nice and even, almost perfect for taking portrait shots. As good as the Mi 11X is at detecting the edges and separating the subject from the background, portrait shots from the Xiaomi 11i are looking much better in comparison. It's not just with humans, it is doing the same thing while taking portraits of objects as well. Edge detection gets even better from both of them in these situations, but the overall images are still looking better from the Xiaomi 11i. Most of the images that I take with my phone are portrait shots, so out of the two, I would definitely pick the Xiaomi 11i Hypercharge for my portrait shots. If you guys like the high contrast look in the portraits on the Mi 11X, you can go with it and there is nothing wrong with that. Now let us move on to the images which are taken indoors, artificial and lower lighting conditions. When there is plenty of ambient light, both the phones take good looking images. Ones from the Mi 11X are a bit brighter, but they don't have too many details in them. Xiaomi 11i's images are much more detailed and they also have slightly less noise in them. You can notice these things even without zooming in. But it is also true that you will notice these things only when you look at these images side by side. If you look at the images from the Mi 11X alone, they don't look all that bad. As we move to even lower light, details in both their images go down and even more noise starts creeping in. You can turn on the night mode on both of them, but it doesn't make all that difference. Yes, the images are a bit brighter, but it also introduces a lot of noise, and other than that, the night mode doesn't add or bring back any more details in these shots. None of them really stand out in these lighting conditions. But if I had to choose one, in some of these shots I prefer the colors from the Mi 11X and how it handles the exposure. Surprisingly, in some of the shots I also found it to be capturing more details and have sharper things overall. I think this is the Xiaomi 11i being a bit inconsistent. I really hope Xiaomi is working on a software update to improve the cameras on this 11i. I believe it has got a lot of potential, but the software on this phone needs to talk with the hardware in a much better way. That brings us to the front-facing cameras. Mi 11X gets a 20 megapixel selfie camera and the Xiaomi 11i gets a 16 megapixel one, but the selfies seem to be more detailed from the 11i. Xiaomi 11i isn't capturing the best looking colors in these selfies, but ones from the Mi 11X are even worse. Some of its selfies are looking yellowish while others have a green tint in them. As you can probably tell, selfies from the Xiaomi 11i are looking much better than the ones from the Mi 11X. For the portrait selfies, the edge detection is again really good and accurate from both. For the shots taken in indoors and artificial light, colors and skin tones are again messed up in Mi 11X's portrait selfies. Now the selfies from the Mi 11X were not always this bad. I have a few from when I first got this phone and the colors were not this bad. I guess one of the software updates messed it up. Given its current state, for any kind of selfies, normal or portrait, I would again go with the Xiaomi 11i Hypercharge. Here's a video from the front-facing camera of the Mi 11X and the Mi 11i Hypercharge. You can see how both these phones are handling the overall colors of the scene, exposure, and stabilization when I'm walking around with them. You can also check out and let me know in the comments which of these do you think is handling my voice better. Both phones can shoot 4K 30fps videos, but only Mi 11X can shoot stabilized 4K videos. Just look at how good the video from the Mi 11X looks. It is really sad that even after charging so much money for it, Xiaomi did not include electronic stabilization for 4K videos on the 11i Hypercharge. Both can shoot 1080p 60fps videos and they are unstabilized on both. I don't know why and when would someone want to shoot such shaky videos in high frame rate. But if you want to, then the option is there on both these phones. 11i can finally shoot stabilized videos at 1080p 30fps. That being said, these videos don't look very sharp from it. Ones from the Mi 11X just look better. If you like to shoot videos, I would say go with the Mi 11X. It can shoot stabilized 4K 30fps videos, and these videos have much more details in them compared to the 1080p 30fps stabilized videos on the Xiaomi 11i. Those were all the image and video samples that I had for you guys. Other than for shooting videos, we saw that the Xiaomi 11i comes on top in most of the conditions. It takes better images in daytime, its HDR mode is better, and the portrait shots and selfies also look much better from it. Mi 11X is better at taking macros and videos. So look at where your priorities are and what kind of images you take and then decide between these two phones. After all this, I would like to say one thing about both these phones. Not everyone uses the cameras on their phone as often, but almost everyone needs better performance on a daily basis, which both these phones can deliver on. I also feel the cameras on this phone are enough for most people as they get the job done. This is what I feel about the cameras on both these phones, but you guys also saw the image and video samples, so what do you guys feel about them? And if you guys were to choose between these two phones based on their cameras, which one would you pick? Let me know in the comments. That is it for this video guys. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to the channel for a lot more quality tech videos like this. You can also check out some of the other videos from this channel. This has been Sagar and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.